I'm gonna give you the top 4 snatch variations that you can use to improve your snatch, and we're gonna start right now. So there's snatch variations. We've got a high hang snatch. We've got a low hang snatch. We've got a no feet snatch. We've got a pause below the knee snatch. We've got a pause above the knee snatch. We've got a power snatch. We've got complexes. We've got power snatch into a full snatch, into an overhead squat. We got a snatch balance. We got a snatch balance into an overhead squat, into a snatch. We've got all of these crazy freaking variations. And even when we're looking at our own programming inside of Peak Strength, we've got snatch on day 1. And then when we look at day 2, we're gonna have 2-box snatch. And then when we're looking at day 3, we're gonna have a hip snatch. And then when we're looking at day 5, we're gonna have snatch again. So one of the big questions that comes down to this is, first of all, why do we need to use variations? And then second of all, how do we select these variations so that we can optimize our overall performance? So why are we gonna use variations? First of all, we need to define. Variations are exercises that are snatch derivatives, okay? Specifically to snatch in this video. So they're going to be a movement pattern that will emulate the snatch, but isn't exactly the competitive snatch. So that's gonna help us improve positions. It's also going to help us decrease or increase the load in certain areas. Something like a snatch balance, we can usually use a little bit more than our typical competitive snatch. Something like a power snatch, that's gonna be a little bit lighter than what we would use if we're doing that competitive snatch. Another big factor is that we can target specific positions. So if we look at the technical model of pushing our knees back, staying flat-footed, and then as the bar goes through no man's land and our knees start to reciprocate forward, we gotta hold those positions, hold that flat foot as long as possible. So if we see weak points, now we can figure out what variations we can use to really target those weak areas or those poor technical movement patterns. And then also, training can be freaking boring. So throwing in something like a no hook muscle snatch with flat feet can be more entertaining. Throwing in something like a close grip snatch or a mid grip snatch, that's gonna make things a little bit more entertaining. So that's gonna be some of the different reasons why we would use variations. Now, if we're looking at specific problems in the snatch, first of all, we know that there's gonna be problems with jumping forward, jumping backwards. Some of the best weightlifters in the world, yes, they might jump forward. Some of them might jump backwards. But if we see that there's some type of technical inconsistency caused by that, then we need to iron that out. Another big factor is if people start to bend their arms really, really early. That can cause big issues, pulling themselves forward, getting on their toes really early. That's another problem. And then finally, there's 2 problems that I usually lump together, ironically, okay? So the first one is going to be a press out. Usually that press out is where the bar is just a little bit out of position and we see the little elbow bend. Okay, hopefully they're getting rid of that this year in 2024. Then the next factor around those press outs is that it's usually caused by bumping the bar forward off the floor. So that's another weak point that we have to address when we're trying to develop snatch technique. So now we can go over what are the best variations that you can use to fix those problems, okay? So if we're looking at 1, jumping forward or jumping backwards. One of the big factors here is first we have to learn to slide our feet instead of jumping our feet all over the place. 2, we have to learn how to keep that bar really, really tight. This first variation is absolutely probably the king around technical development because it forces you to stay connected with the ground. And that's going to be a no feet snatch. Now, some of the big concepts here. A no feet snatch is not a flat foot snatch. A no feet snatch means that you can plantar flex. It helps you stay really, really tight with that upper body, helps you stay really, really tight with the bar close to your knees off the floor, and it helps you stay really, really connected throughout the entire lift. So the no feet snatch is an absolutely fantastic variation that you can use to iron out any jumping issues that you have. And also if you have an athlete who isn't as athletic, okay? And they're really, really powerful, but they're not as coordinated. It's a really, really great teaching tool, especially in the realm of sports performance. Now, this next one, the arm bend, okay? And this is something that I struggled a lot with Jake Horst. And Jake Horst is a 2-time world team member representing the United States. He was a 73K lifter who snatched 145 kilos. He was a 6-time national champ. This dude, early in his career, when I was a younger coach, he was a total meathead. He just wanted to come in and smash weights all the time. One issue that we had is that Jake tended to bend his arms quite a bit. And some of the issues around that is he had really, really long legs, and ironically, his hamstrings weren't that strong. So what we did is we came back and we said, okay, let's use an exercise, the low hang snatch. And the low hang snatch is going to be the movement that we use to really iron out and strengthen the posterior chain, and then to try and get rid of that arm bend. Typically, the arm bend is caused by someone who has inactive hamstrings to help bring their knees through with that co-contraction from the quad and the hamstrings, and they struggle to get the hips under them, okay, under their torso as they're staying flat-footed. So we use the low hang snatch, and you can do this with a 3-second eccentric, a 5-second eccentric, okay, anything along those lines. As you get closer to a peak, ideally you wouldn't focus on that eccentric portion. Instead, you make sure you get down below the kneecap, keep that bar nice and tight, and lead into that big finish. Now, another big issue tends to be that we're looping the bar. So typically we'll see someone bump their knees forward and the bar starts to roll forward quite a bit. I'm gonna throw my niece under the bus, youth national champion, Devin. Devin Welker, my absolute beast niece, who tore it up when she won the youth national championship this past summer and is an absolute phenom. She does tend to bump the bar forward in the snatch sometimes. And some of the ways that we're trying to fix this is, one, we're gonna use flat-footed muscle snatches, okay? So flat-footed muscle snatches. And when we're doing a flat-footed muscle snatch, we wanna make sure we're also not making contact. So it's a really easy way to warm up that snatch patterning, keep that bar really, really tight, and a fast upper body. And then sometimes we'll even pair this, okay, where we'll get into more of a competitive snatch, but we'll use a pause below the knee snatch. And the reason why I like to do this is that if we're pausing below the knee, I wanna see those shins vertical. And a lot of athletes, when they pause for like 3 to 5 seconds, they feel that position of the bar being really, really tight. Start to push the bar forward, they start to notice the difference between the two lifts. And that's the whole goal of when we're using variations, is that we try to figure out why we're using these variations, and then how they're gonna transfer over, and then the feeling, so that the athlete can then use all 3 of those aspects to improve their competitive snatch. And that's even how we've set up our periodization and how we actually program peak strength. And inside of peak strength, we have a full Olympic weightlifting program where you can have direct access to the exact same styles of programming that we're using here at Garage Strength. However, we've got one more. If we have somebody who tends to press out, okay, there's a couple different factors here. Press outs tend to be based around 2 things, okay? 1, the bar is either out of position, like you're looping it forward, or 2, you have minimal hypertrophic elbow extensors, meaning your triceps and your shoulders are very, very weak, okay? I know the shoulders aren't elbow extensors, but they provide that substantial support. So we like to do things like snatch balances, okay? I also like to think that the muscle snatches do help with press outs. And then finally, we love to do a ton of accessory work. So I know that this is not a variation, but if we're doing tricep movements like miracle grows, that's a great way to resolve those press outs. So use all of these variations, understand why you're using snatch variations, understand what positions you're struggling with, and then that's exactly what we do inside of Peak Strength. So head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.